Good question. Other questions or observations? Yes, sir. Can't hear you. Microphone.
How are we doing? Got
There
me?
we go. Yep.
Hello. Bourbon, it strikes me, has always been a product or a thing that's drenched in tradition. And it seems like that your approach would fly in the face of that, but you're having a lot of success despite that. How have you navigated the old time? I see for the people, by the people, I get that. But how you've navigated that tradition.
It's a good question, and I can tell you, opening Louisville, it was very high on my mind to go do it. But what it seems like is this is changing the paradigm. Right now, whiskey tends to become, it's gone where Scotch is going, bourbon's going, prestige. Look at the bottle I got. I found this bottle. I got, and it's a prestige thing. And that's an extrinsic motivation, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But when you make mine, and I've got some cherry because I like this, and I've got this because I like this. This is an intrinsic, it's a whole different sale. And it's not one is better than the other, it's and. It's not or. But then by being absolutely transparent about what we're doing, okay, and in order to legally do it, because if you don't do it this way, you do barrel, if you came back the next year, you can't get your same bourbon made. You know, because it'll always be different because the barrels. Here we're able to drive that variation out. And then grounding it in the 1800s barrel blenders, we're grounding it to, as we say, returning it to its roots, an authentic time when this went on. Now you might say, well, I don't like what they were doing back then when they would take a sherry cask or a cognac cask and finish it in that and then do it. But that's a time that existed. And so by grounding it in a time that we're taking you back to that time, and we do not attack or talk negatively about anybody. You know, I'm yet to, we joke oftentimes, I say, I'm yet to find a bourbon drinker who has a bottle, as in one bottle. You know, usually they have many. And all I want to be is among the 3 pours that they do the night a friend comes over.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want to be. I don't want to be the dusty one in the back. I just want to be part of that. And so this is an addition to the industry, not anything, you know, meant. And by being that way, I mean, we're right across from McNickner's, down the street from Angel's Envy. I mean, we're right in Whiskey Row. Okay. We got 2 more opening up soon near us, and they're all wonderful. They're all great.
Nice.
Other thoughts, questions? Well, it is. I will tell you that this is the distillery that if I didn't have one now that's doing ridiculous volumes, I would have wanted to have. And because it's more on the creativity and the merchandising and the experiences of what you're doing than all the stuff. But that fits with my personality. And so I find that really cool. I also have come to really, really enjoy the franchising relationship. Because in many business relationships, you'll have divergent missions. One partner wants this and another one wants this. But in this one, we are unified in the how can we grow the business and sell more? Because the more they sell, the more we make. And it's a win-win. And so that just creates a really neat relationship. And now we're small and we're we've got a small thing and it's so rare and there's nobody else near it. I mean, I knew there was something there when I could get the web address bourbonfranchise.com, which is just kind of ridiculous that it would be available because of all of the things. But it is kind of a cool thing to do. And if you're looking for something, whether it's that you want to do it and you want to do it scale and you want to put a lot of outlets in a city and make it big, yeah, we can do that. We've got those conversations going on. And if you're looking to say, how can I make my cruise line the coolest in the world? The only one where you can get this, and I can now have a collection of experiences painlessly. And yes, I know there's a lot of regulations with the sea and that. Welcome to the industry. That's just life. That's just part of it. So we're excited about all of those. Any other questions or issues or observations?
So first, just a quick observation, what you were talking about with the bourbon, kind of the bourbon culture and the old school. At least where I am, and I'm obviously a bourbon drinker and have a lot of friends, and I think there's a lot of frustration out there with trying to find the unicorn. So I think this kind of is a kind of a cool way of getting around that a little bit, and providing something that I feel like I can get exactly what I want, which I don't know if that bottle of Stag I've been chasing for 10 years is actually going to be worth worth the effort. So
Yeah.
This is something I know I'm going to get something that I want. So just from a logical standpoint, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
It's
and
like-
there's something else about that that's really cool, because here's what we're finding happening. People come to the experience, they have friends in town, they come again 6 months later. And inevitably one of them will say, Doug, I'm liking something different than I liked before. I said, when'd you come before? He said, December. Oh, well, maybe it felt differently for you. And so we're moving to a world. I do believe, I mean, we're not going to take out the big whiskey with their money and their advertising, and we're not going to do anything about that. But there's going to be, I think, an opportunity. I know right now, I've got bars that they have a smoke product for their Smoke Manhattan, where they have their own bar whiskey that we supply them. They have one also for their old fashioned, and they're customizing the whiskey for their cocktails. And then a couple places that we've started to roll out the blending machines to some of those on-premise places, they make all their cocktails on it, where they're optimizing. And so, and the machine, I mean, we can do 100 custom bourbons made into old fashions. 2 people can do that in an hour, 1 hour. Okay, that's custom. Every single bourbon different with using the machine. And so, catering events, they go crazy because you can serve it faster than the people can move to the next person in line. So people will end up having not just their bourbon, but they'll have their winter bourbon. They'll have the bourbon for this cocktail. I'm up in Canada right now, and last night we were down by the fire, and I had a special bottle that I had made to have sitting there by the fire, on the beach. And now that bottle, after having that down there, that's all I can think of is that moment sitting down there with it, And so this is just kind of fun.
Do you see a lot of like people going into this like with a partner and kind of splitting the expense and running it together, or is it more of a, kind of a more in the, I've owned this bar already? So for me, it would be like just starting from the ground up. So I don't have a bar, certainly don't have a cruise ship. So
Yeah,
what does that kind of process typically look like?
I would say, well, you got 2 groups. You got companies that are doing it, in which case that's one thing. Because they want to put this in because the value of what this will do for their relationship with their customers is worth more than anything else. And some of them, what we've said no to, because they just were so not caring about making money doing it. They just said, being able to do this with my VIPs is going to do a lot of stuff for me. And it just felt weird. I'm fine with doing that. And yes, that's the thing to do, but let's run the thing really well too. So it was just kind of weird. But when it's individuals, most of the time it's a group of 2, 3, or 4 people who come together who may have different skills. Sometimes, like we've got some where it's an investment group that if they've done a number of these things now, and they're now just doing this new one now. They hang out and support each other to go do it. So, I mean, that's very common. That's a very common thing.
You mentioned one of the things you mentioned was exclusive territory. So, give me an example of like what would you consider an exclusive territory? How large is that area from the standpoint of starting something like this, making the investment and having the opportunity to build it? So
this is a conversation with us that we go through with you. We are, we don't have to have 10,000 units to make this work. I mean, it's just not that kind of a thing, nor do we expect that. So generally, if it's if it was the city of Cincinnati, there's Cincinnati, say within the 275 loop, that could be the primary area. And when there's somebody not in the next space over, they're given a special dispensation to use it until somebody came, if somebody ever comes, for them to market to. But generally, they'll get a metro area that they'll get. Some people, when you get to very large areas, Houston, New York, LA, Chicago, and there we're talking about conversations where somebody they want to put it in there, but they also want to have an option for the rest of the city and a requirement to open up so many more stores across the city and have it. And I would prefer to obviously have one person do the city of Philadelphia rather than split it into pieces, if you were doing that. People are driving. I mean, people regularly on Saturdays, we have this at the distillery, we do it, and people will drive a couple hours to come do it. I mean, but boy, if you've got that foot traffic going by and if you've got a tourism space, this gets really good really fast.
Do you guys, you have when you look at a partnership with someone, do you have a certain area, like you want a certain amount of population in one area, or does that matter? I mean, if it's just a tourist place that does get a lot of traction, but may not be as big as Cincinnati or something like that, I mean, does that matter to you guys?
We're still trying to understand. Being from rural Maine originally, now I live in the Cincinnati area, there are places where I think this can be made to work that would not be a metropolis to go do it. And in fact, I've got a conversation going on with somebody that is in a small area, but it has a ton of people every weekend. But beyond that, you can roll the sidewalks up. Working with him, I said to him, let's just sit down together and do the math. Can we make this work? And so, and sometimes it's weird because like that venue there, he's explaining it. I'm like, I can't this work. And then I get out there and we sit and talk and I go, what's that thing across the street? Oh, he says, that's the only reception hall, meeting center, and wedding reception hall in like X number of miles. I said, how busy is it? Oh, he says it's busy, probably, 3 or 4 nights a week, there'll be things going on there. And suddenly I'm thinking, if we collaborate with them across the street, can we make that math work with this? Another guy, he has he's really on the tour bus route. And he's like, yeah, but I'll have them here I'll be their first stop at 8 a.m. and I'll be serving them bourbon. And these people are on vacation and they think it's fun. And so they go do it. So I can't say yes, but I'm not going to say no. And I can tell you, I want to find ways to make it so that the math works for you, is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make the math work for people. And obviously you get to some rural locations, all of a sudden real estate and everything else becomes a lot cheaper in a general sense versus the metro areas. But also we've done some things recently to really cut the number of labels that you have to get pre-printed, use the blending machine to do them, use just-in-time manufacturing to drive costs down, and to simplify the offerings. And so it's just a matter of sitting and talking. Other questions?
Yeah, Doug. Hi, Decomis here. Sorry, I got in late. I was caught up in another call. So I'm basically wanting to ask where you stand on branching out outside of North America. Because as far as I've heard, this is all a North American market and areas that you guys are talking about. I'm over here in Romania, and this is never heard of, and this would be a massive revenue generator in Bucharest, where I am. So I was just wondering, where do you stand on branching outside of North America?
So I am Canadian American. My mom was Canadian. My dad was in Maine. And the ranch has done collaborations and partnerships with people all over the world. We have filed patents on this stuff in somewhere around 70 countries. And so on the long view, the answer is absolutely, that's what I want to do. Recognizing the fact that then there will be differences, because again, we have to adapt to the country. We go into India, there's a whole set of tax laws that you have to kind of play a game around to make it work. You can make it work, but it's just got to be flexible. And in these various countries, and then there will also be places where right now we're doing bourbon. The same exact process works for rum. It works for a Scottish style whiskey known as a single malt. It can't be Scotch per se, but it can be a single malt. It works with brandy. It works with wine, actually, as well. And so, yes, we want to do it, but at the same time, we got to think about it to say, what is the right product there? Bourbon is growing big. It's within a few years of being the #1 selling of the spirits. But that said, Scotch is entrenched in many of those markets still. And so, does it have to be a single malt experience? Or, cruise ships are pushing me to say, can I make it a rum experience? Or can I do rum one night and the next one the next night? And the answer is, yeah, you can. It's just 6 little boxes, or a couple cases of bottles.
The way I envision it, it would be bourbon that is quite attractive from what I see in this market where I am now in Romania. So you look, yeah, it would probably be bourbon. Scotch is pretty much every day here. Bourbon is something that is quite exotic, similar to a Cadillac Escalade. You see one in every 100,000 cars or something, So this is something that would be quite exotic and quite unique for this market, and I'd love to hear more about it, but we can take that on different forums. I don't want to take up everybody's time.
Look forward to connecting. There's a question here. How long would it take to start up the distillery? It obviously, and this goes without saying, government approval processes, they're all in favor of it. They just don't get it. They've never thought of it this way. You have to walk through that process. And if you have a good relationship with the fire inspector and these things go quickly. If you have a tough relationship, it can be a bit frustrating. I like to tell people to get all of your permits and approvals in the States for, like, say, the state of Ohio plus this, we say 6 months. It can happen in 4 months, but it's tend to be moving. The state of Ohio is very slow. Now they're much faster. But it's going to take something like that. It's going to be in the 4 to 6, and I'm not saying, and they can go faster and they can go longer as you work through it. Wonderful. Any other questions? Well, thank you, everybody, for your time. Lana's going to send out a link so that you can watch this and share it. And we'll probably also send you a couple of other things. We've got a neat little video that was just made. Kevin Cahill and the Deming Institute did a case study for their Deming video series that they made. And about innovation and Plan, Do, Study, Act, and how we do it. So we'll share that with you as well. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grazie.
Thanks.